Well, thanks
Sounds
for
good.
joining me today and agreeing to do this interview. There's a lot of exciting stuff happening right now. I'm sure you're busy. So I wrote some questions down to ask you. And you're Blake Shook, owner of Commercial Bee Supply and Desert Creek Honey. Are you joining us from Texas or North Dakota right now?
Yeah, actually Texas right now. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're in actual spring. I'm in South Dakota, and man,
Oh,
yesterday we had more flurries. It's just
unbelievable.
it's tug of war season right now.
Just won't end. Yeah.
So
Uh,
the exciting thing I want to start with is I saw your warranty. We know year over year that bees are dying in really high numbers. So what got into you offering to replace them for free? Tell us about
yeah.
your inspiration and how it works.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thanks for asking. We work with a lot of small scale beekeepers constantly through our company, the Bee Supply. And so we bring a lot of people into beekeeping, and we just see how discouraging it is for so many of them. They're so excited their first year, they get their bees, and then all their bees die, and they're like, "Wow, that was expensive. I can't afford to just keep getting into beekeeping again." And so we just see this huge drop off every 1 or 2 years in beekeeping, and even with more long-term beekeepers, as commercial beekeepers, we have programs like ELAP, that we can get compensated for some of our losses. Those small scale beekeepers don't have anything like that. So when they lose hives, they're just out of luck. And so I've always thought, how can we help these small scale beekeepers stick with beekeeping? And so we've tried education for years. We've given away tons of free education to try to help small scale beekeepers be successful. And that's been great. It's really been helpful. But this was kind of a step further, saying, okay, um, now you can buy a warranty for them, and even if they do die, we'll replace them, and you can kind of be assured that you can stick with it, especially to get them over that year 1 and 2 hump until they really know what they're doing, because it is expensive, and money's tight for everybody, and so we said, hey, we can make, because we're actually raising all these bees ourselves, we're raising the nooks and the singles, etc. Our cost is lower than a reseller, for example,
Mhm.
and so we can survive with a slimmer margin, and replace people's bees at a cheaper rate than most can, and still make it work on our end too.
Yeah, that's amazing that you can make this pencil, and I'm sure that the beekeepers that take advantage of it are delighted to have this opportunity and assurances. What's been the response?
Yeah. It's been really positive. Yeah, it's been very positive. People are very excited. Right now, it's the second, third year beekeepers that are really excited because they understand how often bees die. The brand new beekeepers, it actually takes a little more convincing because they haven't seen yet, oh yeah, we really do lose 40, 50, 60, 100% of hives. And so it's kind of those slightly more seasoned beekeepers that still haven't maybe quite figured it out that are most excited about it. And so it's kind of that year two beekeeper that we've had the most ready adoption of it. The year one takes a little more convincing, interestingly.
Yeah, they're fearless.
Right. Yes. And
So,
optimistic.
yeah.
Yes.
So how does it work? I mean, you have certain things they need to do in order to qualify that they actually tried to keep their bees alive, right?
Yeah, because that was one of our fears. And it's one reason we hadn't done it until recently is because we didn't want to incentivize poor beekeeping. We didn't want to have people um, and so we built that they have to mites that they were practicing proper animal husbandry. And so if they buy all their supplies from our company, then we automatically link up their purchases with the bee purchase on the back end to kind of verify, okay, they bought mite treatment, they bought syrup, they bought all these things. We can tell they're taking care of their bees. If they buy from supplies from another company, which is perfectly fine, then we just ask them to submit their receipts when they do a claim that show that, yeah, we were taking care of our bees.
And
And so as long as we see that, we're good.
did you wade into any of the education opportunities for these beekeepers to see if you can
For
endorse
sure.
some or offer some? I know you have a lot of your own channels. Are you partnering with
Yeah.
any of that or just trusting people to find their Beekeeping for Dummies book?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, we
It is
already
a good
do
book.
to any, it is a good book. Yeah. No, to anybody that works with us or comes across us at all, I mean, we're constantly pushing our free monthly webinars, our magazine, our YouTube channel. And then for the warranty specifically, we actually created a booklet for them to follow, like a best management practices of, hey, here's what you need to do when you need to do it. And it's just a BMP booklet that we advise them to follow to keep their bees alive.
That's great. And does that come with their bees?
It does, yes.
Yeah,
And it comes really whether they get a warranty or not. We have BMP books that we give to everybody that we've created that gets bees from us.
so your customer service department must be growing exponentially.
Sometimes too exponentially, yes. I think we're a little too generous sometimes with free education and free support. But that's the fun part of what we do. So yeah,
Yeah,
we
whether you
lean into
like it
that
or
pretty
not,
hard.
you're an advocate for bees and love it
Right.
or leave it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what have
Yeah.
your commercial colleagues said about this? They must think you're a little crazy or try to sign up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, if the price point was slightly lower, I think they'd probably try to sign up. It's really been geared and marketed to the small scale beekeeper. And so, most commercial beekeepers, have said, oh, that's a pretty cool idea. I see why you're doing that for small scalers. Yeah, it doesn't really work for commercial guys. It's hard to beat ELAP. So they get it. They understand. They say, yeah, that's a smart move. And cut the price in half and we'll buy it commercially. But it doesn't pencil out then. So yeah, no resistance at all. Lots of interest. It'd be really cool to figure out how to do it on a commercial scale,
Yeah.
some sort of a warranty program or insurance program. But that will be 2025.
Yeah, you got to walk before you can run. So we'll ask you how the warranty
Yeah,
has gone next year. We look forward to hearing about that.
exactly. Yeah,
So
me
what
too.
else do you think beekeepers need to be successful? What I know you have these channels. Is
Yeah.
it working?
Yeah, we definitely we joke about it internally sometimes that it might work a little too well. We don't sell as many bees to second and third year beekeepers as some others do because so many of our beekeepers are successful.
Oh,
And I really think it's education. And so we have never taken the approach of, hey, here's your bees, good luck. I mean, it's no, we're on this journey with you, and we will be on this journey with you as long as you want to be on this journey. And so, yeah, we're constantly, we push our education as much or more than our products. I mean, even internally, we talk about like, hey, when we send out emails as a company, we want at least every other email to be education focused, not product focused. And yeah, that seems to work. I mean, it builds a lot of rapport with our customers, and our customers become our friends, and we are kind of all peers together in this beekeeping journey. And so yeah, it seems to be working, and it seems to really be helping beekeepers stay beekeepers longer and be better beekeepers, which is important to the whole industry.
yeah. Well, you're doing a phenomenal job reaching beekeepers, and I think it's an interesting time with so many more beekeepers learning that way on these
Mm.
social media channels. Are you
Oh
finding
yeah.
that's a lot of your
Oh
customers?
my goodness. I mean, before COVID, we really weren't on any form of social media. We were not much. I mean, we didn't have a YouTube channel. I mean, and then when COVID happened, we had to because all our customers all of a sudden couldn't come into classes anymore. And so, yeah, that's when we started doing YouTube and we started creating these webinars. And our intent was that, hey, once COVID's over, we'll stop all of it because it's super time consuming. And
Yeah.
it was so popular that it's like, oh, we can't stop this. And so it was strange, just how fast it changed, and I think we see that in bee clubs, national, state, and local. There's not the same buzz, around bee clubs as there was pre-COVID. And I think COVID really just was a sucker punch to beekeeping clubs. And it's because now you're having these, yeah, everybody's going to YouTube, everybody's going to social media and TikTok, and it's the way we learn now. And so we've had to adapt quickly to that.
Yeah. Well, and I think we got good at it. Look at us now on a Zoom
Exactly.
call
Yeah.
to share
We had to.
information. It
Yeah.
developed a lot of
Yeah.
new tools.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just different, it's a different world.
So tell us about your Blake's philosophy of beekeeping world. What do bee businesses need? What changes have you seen? You have a pretty
Yeah.
thoughtful business. It's changing quickly. So
Yeah. Yeah. It is. I think that one of the common themes for me has been simplify
hmm,
on all levels of the business. That's so important for small scale beekeepers. I forget, it's easy to forget that for most small scale beekeepers, this is a hobby. This is like a fun backyard hobby. It's a small part of my life. I can't dedicate 10 hours a week to study, to keep my bees alive. And so I'm constantly having to remind myself and our whole education team, simplify, what do they need to know? But provide opportunity when people want to go deep. But how do we simplify beekeeping? And I think that even applies commercially. How do we simplify, streamline, become more efficient as costs increase, as prices increase? We have to simplify our businesses, and so that's a constant mantra for me. Is from all levels, simplify, streamline, and make it more cost effective, because that's just the environment we're in beekeeping today.
So when you say simplify, I'm thinking, okay, we're not talking about cutting corners, but is there an
No.
example that comes to mind easily for like simplifying something for a hobby beekeeper?
Yeah, so for hobby beekeeping, I think it looks like, a really practical example is we started cutting things out of our beginning beekeeping classes to make it a shorter and shorter class. Like, do we really need to get into the history of bees in the United States and the different all the different bee breeds and the pros and cons of all the breeds? And do we need to get into the nuts and bolts of honey extractor pros and cons based on brand? Like, to us as professionals, yeah, all that stuff matters and it's fascinating, and why not? But to someone that this is just a casual hobby, like, they need to know how to feed their bees and install a nook and treat for mites. And if they can conquer that, they're doing pretty good. How do we take this from like this unimaginable, complicated web of learning to a bite-sized piece of, hey, here's what you need to do to keep your bees alive? So from an education standpoint, yeah, it's always simplifying. On the other extreme, from a commercial standpoint, as a business, how do we it's analysis and simplification. And maybe it doesn't make sense to pollinate cranberries anymore, because you know what, we're losing an extra 13% of our bees, and we're losing 20 pounds of canola honey crop in North Dakota, and we're only making an extra $50,000. Is that worth it? Is it or not? So let's simplify. Let's cut that out. And so where can we simplify our business operations and streamline it to make a greater revenue per hive, hopefully. Not greater revenue per hive, greater profit per hive.
Yeah, well, I think beekeepers have gotten in a long cycle of kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul and just hoping they're
Mm,
still there at the next year. So I think I hear what you're saying.
right,
You need to
right.
reevaluate at each step. So what do beekeeping businesses need, do you think? Is there anything Pam can do? Is there a gap you see there that you're not filling or that you wish somebody
Yeah.
would?
Yeah, I mean, unity is always on the top of my mind. I mean, having
Yeah.
organizations like PAM that can help unify and reach across organizations and across borders, if you will, is so helpful. To kind of be that neutral third party adult in the room is always helpful, and remind us as an industry that we're all pulling for the same goals. And I think that, we're keeping it as practical as we can as an industry. What are the greatest pain points in beekeeping, and how do we address those in a real practical, meaningful way? So I think those are constant needs in the industry, no doubt.
Yeah, I agree. It's not a large industry. It feels large to us, but it's amazing how many fractions there are. And it seems more
Mhm.
and more there's a lot more new people in beekeeping. So with your hobbyists, how many
Yeah.
of them actually touch pollination or honey production? Do they mostly stay hobbyists? What are you seeing in the segments that you're producing actually?
Yeah. It's so interesting because by and large, yes, most stay on the small scale. They never expand from there. But used to, if I think back, 15 years ago, or when I was becoming a commercial beekeeper, that the trajectory was, if you're going to make a living in beekeeping, you become a migratory commercial beekeeper. That was the path to success. So, you know, you get trucks and you go to California and you go to North Dakota and you join the ranks of the migratory commercial beekeeper. I don't see as much of that anymore. But I see so many small scale beekeepers becoming full-time beekeepers, but in very unique ways. You
Mm.
know, from ag exemption services to concierge services to rooftop beekeeping services to, you know, honey at farmers markets to selling nooks and packages to teaching classes to bee supply stores. There's so much diversity, and I've been preaching that diversity and the importance of that for a long time. But now I'm kind of backing off because it's becoming really competitive. You know, all these unique, diversified areas that my company used to do 10 years ago. We were the only ones in a lot of those spaces, and now they're full, you know, and so I think I see fewer people becoming migratory commercial beekeepers, but more people becoming, you know, any one of 100 different business types to make a living in the beekeeping world.
Where would we see them? Where do you find that? Like, where are they at farmers markets? Are they in local grocers? Like, where do we see
It's
them?
yes, and sometimes we don't see them at all. You know,
Uh-huh.
I know beekeepers that, you know, they're putting you know, bees on people's lands to get them ag exemptions, and they're running, you know, 3,000 hive operations across 300 bee yards on 300 different landowners' land, and nobody knows them. You know, they're under the
Yes.
radar, and so it's, you know, used to we all went to these national associations and we were all the same style of business, the migratory beekeeping business, and it's just so diversified now that it's almost harder to find uh, these beekeepers.
Yeah.
They're different businesses. It's a different world.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. So that was another thing I was going to ask you about. So the Census of Ag came out, and in the last
Mm.
5 years, they say we've added 1 million beehives, which is a
Yeah, how about
pretty
that?
big jump. Do you believe that? What do you think? I mean,
Mm,
some of the data talks about some
yeah,
laws in Texas that really swung the numbers a bit. So tell me what you think of that. Have
yeah,
you seen it all?
yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I've certainly been reading about it, and you know, I don't believe it. Unfortunately, I think that there's some flaws in those census numbers. You know, I would certainly agree that from an ag exemption, in certainly breathes fresh life into the small scale or sideline market. You know, we see after CCD, you know, we saw this huge explosion in interest in hobby beekeeping. And then I think it was starting to die down a little bit, and then COVID hit. And then now everyone's stuck in their backyards and with nothing to do. And there was this ridiculous explosion in hobby beekeeping again. Um,
Sales too.
and I,
I bought a
and
lot of
oh,
honey. Yeah.
tremendous. Oh, absolutely. Honey, bees, bee supplies, everything. And then it kind of started, in my opinion, started falling off a cliff a little bit after COVID. You know, now suddenly no one wants anything to do with their backyard. We want to go on vacations, and so it real that we kind of saw a cliff of. But then the ag exempt piece in the states that offer that kind of helped lessen the impact of the fall off in interest. So all that to say, I feel like we're relatively steady. It's just that we're shifting away from some just pure hobby beekeepers into the ag exempt beekeepers. And the census isn't picking up and wouldn't pick up the just run of the mill hobby beekeeper with a few hives in their backyard. But it will tend to pick up those that are operating bees on their farm for an ag exemption. And then the census is probably picking up sometimes double or triple the correct number because beekeepers are moving their bees around between farms and between states. And so there's some double and triple counting where they talk to a farm in Minnesota and they're like, yeah, we got bees. And they're talking to that farm in Texas, yeah, we got bees, but it's the same beekeeper going back and forth with the same bees.
Right.
So, you know, we have three different bee supply stores, Dallas, Austin, and Houston. I think we're by far the biggest supplier of bees in Texas. You know, we sell tons of bees to all these ag exempt companies through our stores to retailers. And so I think we have a decent feel for the market as far as the scale and the growth, et cetera. And yeah, it's growing, but nowhere near what the consent that the census was showing. I
Right.
mean, Yeah, it's growing, but I mean, not anywhere close to what the numbers are showing.
So I read about this Texas that egg exemption, and every county in Texas adopted it. When did that all
Right.
happen at one time? And tell me about kind of the middle service people that it's created to keep bees. How much of that is Texas beekeeping now? That must be a pretty big deal.
Yeah, so it is, and yeah, it was all adopted over the relatively same period of time, the same year or two, and that's been, man, 10 years ago at this point,
Okay.
ish, maybe 7, 8 years ago, somewhere in there. So it's been a minute, and yeah, it certainly created a whole sub industry around people that wanted bees or companies that are providing bees, as a service for ag exemption. And I would put the number, maybe 50 to 100,000 new hives tops
Okay.
in the state are, and that's a pretty wild guess, but that's the number I would guess at as to the growth in the state. I would say from a commercial standpoint, there really isn't any new growth that I've seen in Texas or anywhere else. I mean, it's pretty stagnant. Um, but yeah, I think there has been some growth due to ag exemptions. And those are probably more likely to stick with it because there's a financial incentive to stick with it, as opposed to those that are just doing it as a hobby. So yeah, I think there's been some growth, but not million, not a
Not a
million.
million, not
No,
not a
yeah,
30% bump in the number of colonies. It's
no,
certainly not probably reaching into pollination contracts or
not at all.
agricultural. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say it has zero impact on really on honey production or pollination, because I think the article even referenced North Texas, which is where I live. I live in North Texas, and North Texas is a terrible area for producing honey. I mean, there is no pollination here. There is no honey production here. I mean, a great year is 30 pounds.
Wow.
So it's really not impacting pollination or honey production.
And is the county law throughout Texas uniform, or is it different in each county for how many colonies
It
or
differs.
okay.
It differs, which has been a big problem. There's not consistency, but it does vary.
Huh. Are there many other states that have that statewide?
I don't think it's certainly not anywhere close to the majority of states, but I
Right.
believe that there are maybe a half a dozen or so other states. There we go. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think there are a half a dozen or so other states that do have ag exempt for bees.
So how much of your business is Texas, and how much of it is throughout the country?
For our bee supply company specifically, for our commercial bee supply company, I mean, it's pretty equal across the country. That base is based in North Dakota and pretty spread throughout the whole country. For the bee supply, our small scale hobby stores, I would say it's probably 70% Texas, 30%
Yeah.
out of state, but more out of state every year. Yeah.
Well, Texas is pretty big. You got a big job.
A lot of beekeepers. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, it is. Yeah.
Great. Well, is there anything else that's been on your mind lately that you want to talk about? Anything I should have asked?
No, I think that's all really, really good stuff. No, great
Great.
questions. Yeah, nothing else comes to mind.
Okay, very good. Well, I appreciate your time and have a good day.
You too. Great to
Thanks,
talk to you.
Blake.
We'll see you soon.
Bye.
All right.